at Bolden Stadium in Couva. International players will join during the November 11th to 19th FIFA window, and York's official unveiling as head coach will take place on November 14th. Minister of Sport Shamfa Cudjoe-Lewis, whose ministry pledged $2 million for the World Cup effort, will be in attendance. The Point Fortin RSC Primary School has closed temporarily due to a rat infestation. On November 11th, students in the infant department were dismissed early after rats and droppings were discovered. Principal Adela Caesar Amon notified parents that the entire school will be closed until November 15th for pest control measures by the Point Fortin Borough Corporation. Mayor Clyde James confirmed that public health officials have started assessing and baiting the premises and are aiming for a quick reopening. Parents were invited to a Zoom meeting for further updates. Police have charged 35-year-old Mwanza Joseph from Guapo with the murder of PC Krishna Banaha, who was shot on duty on November 6th. Joseph, who also faces firearm and ammunition charges, is set to appear before a master in the South Criminal High Court on November 13th. Banaha was killed alongside Joseph's brother, Al-Hakim Joseph, during a police operation at the family's Guapo residence. The charges were approved by Deputy Sabrina Dugdeen Jaglal following a review of the case. Banaha's funeral was held on November 9th, attended by Police Commissioner Earle Harewood Christopher and other officials. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics, from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat! Light the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God!
Oh, poor baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
Well, if you didn't know, you should know. It's news that is not so much news anymore, but there is some excitement at the appointment of Dwight York being appointed the new Trinidad and Tobago senior men's football team head coach. And with that appointment comes a lot of expectations. But whilst we wish York all the best and we hope that it does lead to success, I myself have some questions, and an individual who can answer that question is Andre Errol Batiste, host of The Face of Sport. He's known as the fearless one across TNT, and he holds many, many titles. But let's just welcome my colleague and my friend, Andre Batiste, to the program this morning. Andre, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Keaton, and welcome to all viewers and listeners, wherever they may be.
Andre, you indicated that earlier this year you did have a conversation with Dwight York. I think you interviewed him, and publicly he expressed his desire to be head coach of TNT senior men's football team. That has now happened. Great expectations, but your initial thoughts on this appointment by the TTFA, is it a bit of a risk, or is it a move in the right direction?
Well, I'd have to say I think it's a risk from the point of view that Dwight York, him alone, even with his assistants, can change the fortunes of Trinidad and Tobago. And I say a risk because I felt at the time that Angus Reid was doing a more than reasonable job as the head coach of Trinidad and Tobago. However, given that Karen Edwards recently said in an interview that they wanted to move in a new direction, and they felt, this is the reason I was given, finally we got the reading from him in the interview that the style of football that Angus Eve was playing was not the style of football that they felt was representative of Trinidad and Tobago. The style of football didn't have any flair, it was too defensive minded, and they wanted to change in terms of that. He noted, because he was asked, that the results under Angus Eve was one of the best that we have had. But it was not only about results, but about flair. But as I told him as well in that interview, and you know, as a supporter of many of a football club as well, Keaton, flair alone doesn't win matches. It doesn't win trophies. We've got to be honest and admit that. We can look at any tournament in the World Cup, whatever it is. Sometimes it happens. Many times it's the hard-working team that gets the results that end up winning. So it's all about not only play, it's about adapting the situations and playing along that line. But Mr. Edwards and his executive, they felt, together with the technical committee, that going this way was going to help them. I don't agree. I feel that what is needed is, of course, trying to Tobago to have quality players. Now, Dwight York coming, no problem with me, because I don't have any problem with Dwight York as a coach and all his assistants, but I'm just saying that he alone cannot transform Trinidad and Tobago. He is not going to go out in the field and play. And that is where I have a problem unless we get players from outside of Trinidad and Tobago.
So is there a possibility that he's been given a disadvantage from the start of his tenure as manager, well, head coach of the men's national football team? There have been, in recent times, I've heard of those advocating to give people grandparents' rights. So outside of TNT, they can play for TNT, as you just mentioned. But again, has he been given a disadvantage from the very start because of this?
Well, if he has, he would have had to make that decision himself, because I'm sure in his contract, and I understand in talking to Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Edwards emphasized that part of the contract was, according to him, that once Dwight York doesn't qualify trying to make up for the World Cup, he's out. So he's been given a 2-year contract. The 2 years really is all about qualifying for the World Cup. Should we feel they qualified for the World Cup? And according to Mr. Edwards, Dwight York, he feels will do the right thing and leave, because it was all about qualifying for the World Cup. So if I'm Dwight York and I'm coming in, I want some guarantees in terms of what you've just said, Keaton, that we are going to go out there and we're going to try to get players from overseas. We understand that there have been some amendments to the laws. It is possible now to some extent. So if I'm Dwight York, that's something I'm going to be determined to do, because I'm going to emphasize that the current team that we've been seeing playing, they've been, and you have seen it, Ryan, who's been football, has seen it, we've made the same mistakes on many occasions in defense with the same players. So we've got to change that. And unless we change the personnel, I can't really see a coach changing it. We struggle against the two teams that were demoted. I'm talking about the recent Nations League. Cuba and French Guyana, they were demoted. We played them on 3 occasions. The combination. We played Cuba twice, French Guyana once. We played them on 3 occasions. We got 1 victory and 2 draws. And those were the 2 teams that were demoted. So I think we got to understand that.
Let me go back to your earlier point in which Karen Edwards spoke about the style of play, and what Angus Eve was presenting was not necessarily what the TTFA had in mind. Dwight York has managed 1 team in Australia. Is there a clear indication of what his style of play actually is? I mean, one would assume that it has some flair, it has attacking football, but is there enough to give an indication of his style of play?
No, there is not. So I'm just wondering, obviously there would have been discussions, and they most likely have they told Dwight York that, and they mentioned that Derek King, who took over from Dwight, who took over from Angus Eve, they liked his style of play. But his style of play wasn't very good. We lost 4-0 against Honduras, as we all saw, and then we drew against French Guyana, and then we drew against Cuba. We finally beat Cuba in Tobago, but played a good first half, not so good a second half. So, I mean, I don't know, but they like that style. It's 1 or 2, and it's much to do about nothing, in my opinion.
So then the next question that I have is, does Dwight York, who is a decorated international footballer, played in the Premier League, has won the Premier League, has won the Champions League, well, not the Premier League, but the old English League, and played in the Champions League, won the Champions League, that famous final against Munich. Do you think that he has enough in respect to his CV to be an international head coach? He's managed a side in Australia. He did incredibly well with them. But is that enough to put on my CV as the prerequisite to be considered an international head coach?
Honestly, the answer would be no, but the yes that gives him the advantage. It's because he's from Trinidad and Tobago, he knows our culture, he has a lot of respect. He'll get respect from players, he'll get respect from officials, he'll get respect from government officials as well, and he'll probably get respect from corporate Trinidad and Tobago. That gives him an inside chance. Plus, he would have played enough football, and let's be fair to him. The fact that he hasn't got matches is not necessarily his fault. It's because of the politics in world football. So from that perspective, it's not that he's not qualified. He has all the qualifications. He has all the requisite degrees. He has all the licenses, all the top license, the pro license, everything. So he has done all the work. He's just not got a chance for many reasons. Some will say racially, it's because of the color of his skin. People use many reasons. So this is an opportunity for him, and I'm not going to deny him that based on that.
Quick correction on my part, it is the Premier League, not the Old English League. But in that respect as well, you've made the point and you've concretized the point this morning. It can't just be Dwight Yorke alone. There's a lot that has to happen in the background as well to actually push this team to be in that conversation of World Cup qualification. The thing is, do you think the TCFA needed to do some restructuring internally, even in respect to the footballing laws? Karen Edwards said, we're getting the support from the Ministry of Sport. But do you think that more should have been done first before Dwight Yorke was appointed? So he has every chance and every opportunity necessary.
The only problem, though, Keaton, is time is against us. Time is against us only from the point of view that next week is the first window that he will have. First window, FIFA window, starts, as you know, from the 11th to the 19th. There's no football, only FIFA football. And most likely, because he's arriving in the country sometime between now and next week, Tuesday, and there is going to be a press conference, an introduction for him to the people of Trinidad and Tobago next week, Thursday, at 6 o'clock at the Bmobile Stadium. Because of that, that's actually during the FIFA window. So it's almost certain there will be no match for Trinidad and Tobago during this FIFA window. There, therefore, is only one more FIFA window for him, and that's quite in March. And that is a window where Trinidad and Tobago have to play a qualifier for the Gold Cup. And then he goes into action in June in 2 World Cup qualifiers. So when you think about it, there is no time. That's the problem that they have. You're right, though, in the sense that, as I explained to him that day in that interview, when they decided to remove, for want of a better word, Angus Eve, with his agreement, obviously, they worked an agreement and he parted ways. They should have then brought in Dwight Yorke. But I think there was a negotiation in terms of salary and getting everything done. So it's taken a lot longer, taken about 4 or 5 months. Should not have taken so long if that was their plan, because they were appointed since April the 13th. Mr. Edwards came in as a new president. So we're talking about, he said at the time when they came in, they were okay. But nevertheless, we're talking about from April, and now it's November, and we're into November. We're talking 6 months later, almost 7 months later. So that's a long time. If they wanted to make a change, it could have been done earlier, obviously. But it's what they have, so they can't wait any longer.
Now, pushing all that we've spoken about this morning aside for the moment, surely Dwight Yorke, a former captain of Trinidad and Tobago, captained us to the Gold Cup semi-finals in 2006 FIFA World Cup captain. Surely this brings a level of excitement associated with it. I mean, the public relations alone really kind of gives an upbeat move to TNT football.
Yes, it does, and I think that's something that they recognize as well. That Dwight Yorke is the most decorated Trinidad and Tobago player. We have, without a doubt, because you mentioned, as you said, the successes in the Premier League, Champions League. He's the most decorated. Whether he's the most skillful, that's another debate that can't be discussed right now, obviously. But in terms of decoration, in terms of achievements, Dwight Yorke is the most decorated Trinidad and Tobago player. There's no question about that. So therefore, he brings a lot with him, a lot of positive energy. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts, how he blends in with the team, and of course, who is going to be his team, because we all expect Russell Atapi to join as assistant coach. It's almost certain that will happen, and then there may be some others as well.
Do you think that this also aligns with the trends that we see taking place in world football, where former players and decorated players have moved into coaching and management? Do you think that this is quite possibly we're going to see more of this happening? In fact, do we need more former TNT footballers, even those who were part of the 2006 World Cup team, to actually come forward now and assist with the development of Trinidad and Tobago football?
Certainly can't hurt. I think it can only assist, because we need to unearth talent. We need to make some changes. We need some of the players who are there on the team. Maybe they have the ability, they haven't shown it before, I don't know. But from what I've seen, that's why I keep saying that we need additional players. Unless these players, by some magical wave of the wand or something, or a genie comes and wishes to give them a good wish, and they turn into different players. We need some of these players to improve dramatically to have a chance in the World Cup qualifying next year. I'm not talking about the games we're going to have against St. Kitts, because we're expecting to beat St. Kitts next year, June. Once we win that match, we'll go into the next round. We play Costa Rica in Costa Rica. That's going to be a big test. But we can afford the top 2 teams move on. So from that perspective, we kind of, and another we want to do, but once we beat St. Kitts, we are almost certain to qualify for the next rounds. We don't beat St. Kitts, that's a different picture.
But explain to me something, Andre, that is very difficult for me to understand. The TT Premier League exists for the same fact that the focus was for the development of national football. And yet, oftentimes when we saw this TNT team playing, they had, it's usually the squad seem to have more or less the same players constantly. I mean, what is it in respect to the selection of players that is gone in a direction that I don't even understand?
Well, I think one of the problems they've had, well, we have had no Premier League. We're now going to have since the last tournament would have ended in April, May this year. There's been no football played here, and in the new Premier tournament in Trinidad and Tobago, or Tier 1 as they call it, is going to start in December, quite late, December the 2nd to be exact. So therefore, there's been no football. So you've been playing football based on previous performances of players. In other words, you have nothing to measure the players on, because they're not playing any active football unless you take players who are playing in America or playing in Jamaica or in Central America. You're going to have to use locally based players who are not playing football, so they're not fit. That's whether they like it or not. Playing a practice match, and some of them play 7-a-side football and the weekend football, that is not going to make them fit. And that's the problem we have. Until these players, we are at a massive disadvantage right now. And that's something I'm sure Dwight York, when he comes in, is going to go along the lines, I believe, of Reverend Gally Cummins, and have a locally based squad. Want to put together a locally based, but there's a problem there with that, obviously, Keaton, in that once he does that, these players are playing with a Premier League team. The teams are not going to like that their players are going to be in this camp and not in their camp. So that's a little bit of politics that Mr. Edwards said that they have worked out or they're working out. So we'll see how that headache goes.
Maybe we need to start looking at integral teams, because some of these secondary schools.
No, you might be right. Somebody for us in Intercol, I think they should give them some opportunity. There's some young guys in Intercol. As we know, when you watch football a lot. Spain, England, it's 17 years old and 18 years old and 19-year-olds that making that doing it. And they're not 30-year-old no more, you know. It's all young fellas making it great. Right? So our best guys are over 20, sometimes over 25, close to 30. We are a massive disadvantage.
Well, some of the best players in the world right now are still in their teens. Lamine Yamal, for example.
Yes.
The Euros. Kobe made the same thing with the England squad. So
yes.
And Saka, who could forget? Which, by the way, I think Saka is one of the best players in the Premier League.
The young players. We only have Levi Garcia, and he's now about 24, 25. That's what
Exactly. Andre, listen, when all is said and done, it certainly does bring a lot of excitement, and with it, a lot of hope. But that puts a lot of pressure on Dwight York in respect to the expectations. In fact, as you mentioned, it's already been said, World Cup qualifications or you're out.
Yes. But I think the thing is, he will know that he's coming in, as I said, between now and next week. I know there's some meetings scheduled next week before the press conference on Thursday. So he is coming with his eyes open. This is what, when I interviewed him in February, he said once he got an opportunity, he would love to be the Trinidad and Tobago coach. Of course, he didn't want Angus Eve out, but if Angus Eve is not there and they make a change, he would love the job. And yes, this is what he wanted. He's got what he wants. Now he has to deliver, given all that is around him.
Well, Andre, all our fingers are crossed. I mean, if it's one thing within recent times, we're seeing a lot more support for Trinidad and Tobago football. We're seeing a lot more people coming out, and hopefully that continues to build. Hopefully the momentum continues. And I know that you've been a big part of that as well, with your constant focus on the TTFA. So thank you very much for that indeed. But Andrew, this is where we're going to end things this morning. So thank you for your time.
Before you go, I must tell you that don't forget to tell you at 2:30 today, 2:30 p.m. we're going to have the very a race that is caught on in Trinidad. It's called the Prime Minister Stakes. It's a race involving at least 8 candidates. There is the big race. It's on at 2:30 p.m. on WSN Face of Sports. It's Fun Friday. You know it's Fun Friday. It's an interesting race. And number of selections. People have made selections. Ryan has asked me about the odds. You get the odds, obviously, on at 2:30. But it's a lot of people have picked their favorites.
Well, hold on. Well,
225 people have picked so far.
Put back up the photo.
Yes.
I want to know what the odds are.
Right. I mean, all right. I'm going to give you a little hint because Ryan has asked me. As we speak right now, based on the selection of people, of course, I have two there.
Man. Go ahead, Andre.
There are at least 2 or 3 people that are favorites and in the race, and among the favorites are Stuart Young, Foster Cummins, Penny Beckles come in, but I don't know how come in become a favorite. I'm really surprised about that one. Can't understand that one still in my mind. And Faris Alwari. These are the names, the popular names in terms of selection. Some people have picked Avery Brown as the outsider, and some others have been hesitant to pick. But I mean, so far, it's going to be interesting. I'm finalizing all the odds based on everything that's going on, but it's going to be a big race, 2,000 meters. Can they last that long, Ethan? Can they last 2,000 meters? I have my doubts. But remember, being a prime minister is a long thing. It's 5 years. So you had to be some kind of fitness. You know? If you had to pick, Ethan, if you were picking on that list, who you pick?
my pick had an X on it.
Oh, yes. And of course, there are 2 persons.
My favorite roster.
No. And there's a reason for that, yeah? I'll give you a little inside information. The reason we got is the conditions of the race. We have been told rain is going to fall.
Oh, goodness gracious.
there could be puddles on the ground all over. Rain could be falling. So he is scratched. He's been scratched. He's scratched.
That's from 2:30 today, you said?
2:30. All right, enjoy. Thank you very much. Take care. All the best.
Thank you very much, Andrew. All the very best to you, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's the best way to end any edition of the program. You can look out for that read.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. So now focusing on Trinidad and Tobago and border security. The NTA released a video about 2 weeks ago indicating its ideas or its proposals in respect to policies for dealing with illegal immigrants and, by extension, border security. The thing is, the points laid out in the plan, there is some merit to it, but are immigration issues a focal point for citizens in Trinidad and Tobago right now? Is it an issue that really they see as being something that needed or needs to be dealt with? So I'm joined this morning by the National Transformation Alliance General Secretary, Timothy Tamal. Good morning, Timothy.
Director of Communications.
Director of Communications. You know, I'm glad you corrected me. Thanks for that, because it's getting a little confusing what's going on. No problem at all. Director of Communication. Thank you very much to me for that correction. How are you doing? All is well?
Pretty good, pretty good. How things with you? I want to say good morning to all your viewers and wishing everybody a really, really great day.
Thank you very much indeed, and to you as well. So Timmy, let's start by focusing on the policy put forward. There are different elements to the proposal from that video that was released, including a 3-month moratorium for those that are already within the borders of Trinidad and Tobago who are unregistered. The thing is, according to the video, it suggests that such unregistered adults account for roughly 10% of our population. So that in itself is rather intriguing. But why is the NTA focusing on an immigration policy at this particular point of time? Do you think it's a point of contention, a point of focus for the citizens of TNT?
So for clarification, it is it is a suite of initiatives that we've been putting out. The third one will come out today about border security, because what we believe and what we know is that security, safety and security is the #1 issue that citizens are facing. So the policy that you're speaking about is just one of 3 in terms of border security, and that is complementing a wider security initiative that will be initiated by the NTA when in government, right? So to get to the numbers, how we know the numbers to be that particular number is because those are people that came in on flights or legally and just stayed. So the number may actually be a lot higher.
Now, in that respect, what are some of the proposals in respect to, because you mentioned a suite. Thus far, I've learned of at least two. There's possibly a third one, as you mentioned, to be released later on. But kindly expand on the policy, especially as it relates to immigrants in TNT.
Right. So it's a border security initiative. Now, we know that we have a problem with drugs, with human trafficking, with immigration, and obviously with guns, illegal guns and ammunition. And we know that this has had a really negative impact on Trinidad and Tobago. We see now where almost every, robbery, murder, you're seeing high-powered weapons, you're seeing, people getting killed, 3, 4 people getting killed at the same time. They go to kill one guy. That is as a result of our porous borders, which has not been dealt with for a number of years, despite Mr. Griffith's, efforts to implement a border security agency and elements like that. So what we have is a real crisis, right? So the immigration is just one part of a series of policies that will, basically take care of our safety and security.
And in that respect, the focus has been on immigrants that already have entered our shores, immigrants that are already here. But one of the other points that was mentioned is that there is a 3-month moratorium. It gives an opportunity for those already here to register. If they do not comply, they will be deported. That costs a significant amount of money. Deportation isn't a cheap thing at all for either governments involved or any government involved in the situation. And by extension, of course, it is something that could be very much politically unfavorable in the circumstances. So why is the NTA pushing ahead with strict deportation measures?
I'm not sure. Okay, so 2 things. So the problem with having immigrants here who are unregistered is a number of problems. One, they're being exploited by some employers, so they're being paid under minimum wage. This hurts the average person in Trinidad and Tobago. Once you regularize them, they start paying taxes, they start paying NIS, they start paying all the contributions that every one of us also pays, and that contributes to the national the treasury. So what you have is you're talking about costs. The cost of not doing it is costing us probably in the vicinity of $1 billion, $2 billion a year. So any cost that you and what we want to what I want to say is that we are firm in our belief that the people who are here, they're good and decent people for the most part, and they want to be regularized. They want to be treated as regular citizens. So we think that 3-month moratorium is going to be well subscribed. Once it is well articulated, the people understand what are the parameters, what it is you want to do, how they will be treated, and so forth, moving forward. So from a revenue perspective, it is much, much, much better for us to regularize people than to have them as these outliers in society being abused, being taken advantage of, and by extension, and this is the most important part, hurting citizens who are already, looking for jobs and not, getting the kinds of responses that they would like.
Has the NTA thought about what regularizing or registration might look like, what that might entail, the actual process? Does it suggest that following registration, they would receive some sort of ID card or something to that extent? Has the NTA thought of that part?
Well, definitely. I mean, it's a a work in progress. Obviously, it's not something set in stone, and that's one of the things about the NTA, right? We are solution oriented. Now, of course, as we move forward, details can be worked out and whatever it is. But what we understand is from a fundamental perspective, we need to do something about these 100 and something thousand people who exist in the shadows. Because, Keaton, the reality is we see them every day. Some of them are they're working in security companies. Some of them are doing babysitting. They're cleaning houses. They're working in construction. And as I said, the real issue here is exploitation. And we know this for a fact because, for instance, when before they had shut down SORT, when Mr. Griffith was there were a number of times when that agency would have rescued young women being exploited, and not just young women, underage girls. So, we are caught in a situation where we are definitely damned if we don't. We have to do something. So the details of what it is we will be doing can be worked out, but the principle itself, the solution principle, is sound and fundamental.
So what's also including as part of this policy? Because as you mentioned, it's a burden on the state, it's a burden on TNT citizens in respect to employment, and of course it's exploitation. So it suggests that there is also a need to clamp down on companies and businesses who are actually encouraging this illegal activity of employing unregistered individuals, paying them less than minimum wage, no contribution towards the state, whether it be in the form of taxes or even contribution to the NIS system, because part of the reasoning as well, Mr. Griffith pointed out in his video, is a burden on our healthcare system. So is there also a need to clamp down on businesses for this illegal activity or practice?
Well, that has been tried before, not just here in other parts of the world. What we are suggesting is a more proactive and a more, how can I put it, a more solutions-oriented perspective. Because at the end of the day, you can try to clamp down on businesses, but that only deals with one aspect of it. If we give people the opportunity to be regularized, as I said, Keaton, we are very, very convinced that the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people, want to be regularized. They want to be treated fairly. They want to be, because as I said, they're good and decent people for the most part. So the issues are, it's like with our Forex issue. If you only look at it from a demand side, we need to tax, we need to cut down on what we import. You're going to you only see it from one perspective. But if you saw our Forex release, we were saying that we also have to look at it from the supply side. So this is the NTA looking at the issue from both perspectives. So yes, there may be, and there are at this point in time, there are consequences for businesses who hire people, illegally and so forth. But that clearly has not been working, right? So as I said, rather than do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, we are suggesting something that is more proactive, is more solution-oriented, and has worked. We know it has worked because it has worked in other jurisdictions. You give people the opportunity to regularize themselves, they generally do, especially the good and decent people, the ones that you don't, who are living outside of the bounds of the law and so forth. They're not going to come, and those are the ones that we need to treat with.
So let me shift forward. I asked you the cost associated with deportation. What is the cost associated with regularizing and registering individuals? What resources do you think would be necessary for this process to be deemed as successful?
Well, as I said, Keaton, we have to look at the reality of what it costs us now for it not be for us not doing it. It is costing us in the billions. Not only is the healthcare service being bombarded, but it's education. It's all kinds of other services. It is lost opportunities. And one of the things that Mr. Griffith always trusts is what we could have done, or what we could do, is find people of who could contribute even more to society. Because I'll give you an example. I went to a car wash maybe about 6 months ago, and I was chatting with one of the guys who was washing. It was a foreigner, a South American person, and they were washing on the car. And when I, chatted with the person, they were an engineer. This person was wiping down cars. And this person is an engineer who has an engineering background. They were teaching at a university, and that particular resource is now being used in a way that I want to say is not contributing to the best of their ability. There's so many of those people who can contribute even more to society. So when we talk about costs, whatever cost is going to be attributed to regularization, it is going to be offset by the costs, the benefits to society, which will run into the billions. We've already done the calculations.
Thing is that we're not arguing with the merit of the actual proposals put forward. There is, of course, a merit. The concern is that these proposals and these policies, which come from political institutions, we never have an understanding of exactly how it is going to be done. And that is always the question marks I have as well. So one of the other aspects of this suite of policies in respect to border protection was the acquisition of naval assets. Of course, for border security, our economic zone of 200 nautical miles around Trinidad and Tobago. So that very much is understanding, and that is something that is needed. But we have had so much controversy across the years when it comes to the purchase, the acquisition, and maintenance of patrol vessels for Trinidad and Tobago. What is the NTA proposing to do differently in respect to these vessels and their operations?
All right. So let's look at the facts. Any one of us here, anybody from who's viewing, you Google BAE corruption, and you would see why it is Mr. Griffith saved this country $1.2 billion when he quote-unquote stopped the OPV purchases, right? And he bought the diamond vessels, which were much more suited to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the problem is that when you have a change in government, oftentimes there's a level of vindictiveness that goes along with it. So you find that if you go down to Stobles Bay, you will see vessels there, they're parked up doing nothing, and it's as you said, it's a political motivation. What Mr. Griffith does is always beyond political. He always looks at the good of the country. So whether it's PNM, UNC, whoever it is, it's always about the good of the country. So this is why, as I said, he saved the country $1.2 billion when he went and he got vessels that were suited for Trinidad and Tobago. And that is what he will do again, right? Plus, if you look at the release carefully, he talks about about building the manpower. Right now, our manpower for the amount of vessels that they're proposing is just 25%. So you can't have the vessels and not have the personnel to operate them and to man them. So it works in tandem. But you see, this comes from someone who has the national security experience and who has the national security track record. Mr. Griffith and the NTA, it's very, very clear. He has always been the guy who solves the problems. It is because of his training, his leadership skills, and it is who he is. It's just not part of his DNA to fail.
To me, with all due respect, it's all well and good that we're speaking about Mr. Griffith, and there is, of course, a lot of popularity surrounding Guy Griffith and what he has achieved. But that does not answer the question as to how the NTA is going to navigate this tricky situation differently in respect to the acquisition of naval assets. When you speak about naval assets, specifically also, are we speaking about OPVs as well? Are we speaking about purchasing more OPVs, or are we speaking about the existing infrastructure that is there, bringing them up to par? And
Keaton, obviously, we're not in government. We don't have access to, what is available, what is there, how derelict it is, what is the situation. Those things will be assessed as we move forward. But again, I want to emphasize that what we are doing is a part of a suite of initiatives. In fact, that is the first duty of any government, to ensure that safety and security. Because as I was speaking to a friend of mine about a week ago, and he said, what is the point of having money and business and all these things, and you don't have basic safety and security when your children leave to go to school or to go to to Lyme or to FET, and you have to stay up whole night worrying, not sure if they will come back. So it affects every single aspect of our being. And if you, Titan, you're a television host, you live in Trinidad, you speak to people on a daily basis. It is the number one issue that confronts us. Safety and security is the priority. So when we talk about costs, right, as I said, we can actually lower our costs, or at least pay for a lot of the things that we're talking about by simply doing what is right and what is good.
Well, Timmy, again, on the basis of it, there is, of course, some merits, and there are issues surrounding immigration in TNT. But I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation. Do you care to give us an idea or a peek or a hint as to what may be released as part of the tweet as well? Because I don't know if you said later on today or later on this week.
Later on today. So we're gonna the third thing in the suite of the border protection issue is is talking about drones and what those drones would mean to the national security efforts. Because you see drones, and I'm not talking about those little drones that you get in I think in PriceSmart or one of those places. We're talking about real drones that can that has thermal, cameras and so forth, can stay afloat for airborne for 24 hours. Those drones will be able to monitor our coastlines, monitor the areas between the South American mainland and Trinidad and the Trinidad mainland. And basically what we will be doing is clamping down on whatever contraband trade is going on between Trinidad and that countries outside of Trinidad and Tobago. So, but those drones are not just about, quote unquote, border security. They can be used in operational instances. They can be used for traffic. So, and these things are, done all over the world. They're relatively cheap. In fact, before Mr. Griffith left office, it was already, in train. As with most things that we've seen since 2021, they've been shut down. They've been marginalized. We don't know if this is purposeful or if it's just incompetence. But we've seen the stopping of online reporting. We've seen the social media monitoring unit. We've seen the card for FULs. We've seen so many, and it's 100 other policies that would either be watered down or shut down, and this is simply hurting us. If you look at the numbers, I keep telling people, numbers don't lie. When in Mr. Griffith's last full year in office, the murder rate was 342. We are headed to another year of 600 and something murders. And Keaton, since Mr. Griffith left, we've had, this year will be it's already crossed the point, if you unconfirmed reports, right? We would have the second, the first, and the third most murderous years in our history in the last 3 years. What does that say? It says very clearly that what is taking place now is not working.
Well, Timmy, it's hard to argue with you with respect to that last point. It's hard to counter that last point and saying it ain't working because
it ain't working. And Kishan, we've had a solution. We know, and people say, "Oh, well, it was because of COVID that Mr. Griffith was doing so well." And I say, listen, there's a simple argument against that. We had to look at what was going on for Carnival. You have to look at other jurisdictions. But most importantly, look at the months of October 2021 and November 2021. That is just 2 months after Mr. Griffith left. October 2021, we had 58 murders. At the time, that was the third highest murder count in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And November 2021, when we had curfew, we had public health regulations, we had an SOE, and we still had COVID, we had 69 murders, which up until today is still the most murderous month in Trinidad and Tobago. And I hate to end on such a negative note, but I want people to understand when they come, bring facts. If you say that COVID was responsible, when I see all sorts of people, including the media, including so-called criminologists talking about this issue, and I ask them the simple question, what happened in November and October 2021? We had 69 murders and 58 murders, just months after Mr. Griffith had the murder rate at 342 for the entire year, his entire last year. And to compound that, if you look at the 2014 numbers, it was the lowest murder count again. There is a person, and it's not just a person. He brings together a team. He is the head of the team. He's the tip of the spear. We can solve the problems, and I know I will end, Ethan, how we end almost all our videos. We can make Trinidad and Tobago safe again. We've done it before, and we will do it again.
Starting to sound like a lot of similarities between the Republican Party. I'm just saying. Mr. Timar, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning, and thank you very much for putting forward those points. We certainly look forward to more releases on the part of the NTA, which of course will lead to more conversations on AM Prime. But thank you very much for your time.
Have a good day.
All the very best. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. Lots more to get into after this.
Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 3 killed in Belmont late-night shooting. Dwight York builds coaching team for 2026 World Cup quest. Rat infestation forces temporary closure of Point Fortin RC Primary. And suspect charged in fatal shooting of PC Krishna Banaha. Now for the details. On the night of November 12th at around 11:25 p.m., gunfire was heard and a white Mazda 323 was found crashed into a wall on Belmont Circular Road by residents of the area. Officers arriving at the scene discovered 3 men with gunshot wounds. 2 survivors were rushed to the Port of Spain General Hospital where they succumbed to their injuries. The victims have been identified as Josiah John, 21, Kadeem Andrews, 22, and Algernon Ryan, 28. Investigations ongoing. New Soca Warriors head coach Dwight York has assembled an experienced coaching team as Trinidad and Tobago prepares for its 2026 World Cup qualifying journey. York's lineup includes former teammate Russell Latapi, ex-Manchester United under-19 manager Neil Wood, and Derek King, who recently served as interim coach. Also expected to join is Anthony Crea, a former coach in Australia's A-League. York, appointed on November 1st, kicked off training with local players at the Atto Bolden Stadium in Couva. International players will join during the November 11th to 19th FIFA window, and York's official unveiling as head coach will take place on November 14th. Minister of Sport Shamfa Kujo Lewis, whose ministry pledged $2 million for the World Cup effort, will be in attendance. The Point Fortin RSC Primary School has closed temporarily due to a rat infestation. On November 11th, students in the infant department were dismissed early after rats and droppings were discovered. Principal Adela Caesar Amon notified parents that the entire school will be closed until November 15th for pest control measures by the Point Fortin Borough Corporation. Mayor Clyde James confirmed that public health officials have started assessing and baiting the premises and are aiming for a quick reopening. Parents were invited to a Zoom meeting for further updates. Police have charged 35-year-old Mwanza Joseph from Guapo with the murder of PC Krishna Banaha, who was shot on duty on November 6th. Joseph, who also faces firearm and ammunition charges, is set to appear before a master in the South Criminal High Court on November 13th. Banaha was killed alongside Joseph's brother, Al-Hakim Joseph, during a police operation at the family's Guapo residence. The charges were approved by Deputy Sabrina Dugdeen Jaglal following a review of the case. Banaha's funeral was held on November 9th, attended by Police Commissioner Ule Haywood Christopher and other officials. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us as we continue with our conversations. So earlier this week, I had Karen Ines here on the program as we were speaking of what took place in the Privy Council last week by the appeal brought forward by the Minister of Finance against the Auditor General, Jayawantiri Ramdas, seeking judicial review. That, of course, that appeal was thrown out by the Privy Council, so the case moves forward. But there are still some question marks surrounding the entire case. And Karen returns to AM Prime this morning. She's 3 days in a row, Karen. You got AM talking point yesterday. And welcome back to the program this morning. Thanks for being with us, Karen.
Well, I'm very happy to be here with you this morning, Keaton, and with your listeners. And, you know, your colleague really did make a strong point. He says, you know, this might be seen to be an isolated case, but it is not, because it is an attack on the sanctity and the constitutional independence of a public office that is so important to our country. So I'll go quickly. We went through what judicial review is. It only applies to public officers, and you are saying it. You're asking the court for leave, a permission to review the decision of a tribunal, public office. It could be control of customs. In this case, it would be the Minister of Finance, and to have it reviewed, and ask for leave to get that review. And you have to have certain grounds, which I won't go into all of them, but there are some of the unreasonableness, excess of jurisdiction, etc. And so she did apply, and she was not successful at the High Court. She went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal said yes. Because, you know, one of the reasons is, and I want to make that very clear, the threshold, there's 2 points about it. The threshold for getting leave for judicial review is a low threshold, but that's not the end of it. It is also the fact that it's not only the threshold is a low threshold, but in order, the test that they apply to determine whether you have met that low threshold, which I think should be something that the minister should take into account, is whether, and this is coming from the Privy Council decision in the Sharma case, Sharma versus Brown and Twine, and also another Privy Council case involving Air CZ. And what they said, very briefly, is whether the applicant has an arguable ground for judicial review which has a realistic prospect of success. That is what the test is. So you understand that if they give her, she's been given the leave for judicial review, it means they are satisfied that if the matter goes and it is remitted before another judge, which that is what is the outcome of a leave being granted, is that they are satisfied applying that test that it has realistic, not reasonable, realistic prospects of success. That's the language that was used in the case that Privy Council case in Sharma versus Brown and Twine. So we set the stage. Now, what had happened on the last occasion, and please interrupt me at any time, what had happened in the last case is we know the Auditor General's duties is set out in the Exchequer and Audit Act, and it's very clear. She's like other auditors, but she's the auditor of public accounts. And that includes, and it comes from the Treasury, and the Treasury is defined as the Ministry of Finance. So it's the Minister of Finance who collects all the statement of expenditure, statement of revenue, and other documents that he must submit. And the deadline would have been the 31st of January. That deadline was met on the 31st, but then subsequent to that, they then said that, oh, we made some mistakes and so on. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes. Oh my God. I thought I would have gotten the person to stop.
It happens.
Oh my God. Sorry. I thought I took off my thing. Anyway, so the point is that, so the question was that she had her report were ready, and her report was ready within the time frame set out in the Constitution now, and the Exchequer Audit Act together. And the deadline would have been the end of April. She submitted it on the 24th of April, but in it, according to the Constitution, when the Auditor General is prepared with the Auditor General's report, it is then given to the Minister of Finance, the Speaker of the House, and the President. But I just want to say that you can look at Section 9(1) of the Exchequer and Audit Act, but even what she has said herself, and you can go to the website, and it reflects exactly what her duty is. The purpose of the report, this is what she says, and it's said in the legislation, the purpose of the report is to ensure that there's transparency, accountability. The Prime Minister liked that word when it came to Mr. Hart. Transparency, accountability, and good governance. It is this report that lawmakers and the public turn to for assurance that the government is acting in a transparent, ethical, and lawful manner, and that the financial reporting accounting systems in place accurately reflect the financial performance of the government. The country's international reputation could be adversely affected by an unreasonable delay in submitting the report, etc. And she's borne out, and I won't go through it, by Section 9(1). This is exactly that is her responsibility. But Section 9, as I already said to you on the last occasion, 9(2) says, well, how is she going to determine that? Like any auditor, independent auditor, you've got to give her the documentation, and it actually says that she needs that. It must be supported by sufficient vouchers and proof of payment to make sure the payments were properly chargeable. That's all she wanted, and she clearly was not given that. So eventually, on April 24th, she did send up her report, which is 6 days before the deadline. But in it, and I suppose that is what set off this whole kerfuffle, as our current president of the United States might have said, she added what you might call a qualified report, because she said at the end of the report, it's called a disclaimer, that's what she called it.
Right, this is the disclaimer.
In the report, right, and that is what he saw before. Remember, they saw it on the 24th. He, the Speaker, and the President, of the Senate, sent to them in advance. This is what she said. I was unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to form an opinion on whether all revenues have been fully accounted for and included in the public accounts. I was unable to determine whether any additional adjustment might have been found necessary with respect to recorded or unrecorded revenue. As a result, the completeness and accuracy of actual revenue could not be ascertained. Audit procedures were hindered as supporting documents were not provided to verify payments. As a consequence, expenditure of $1 billion could not be verified. So you understand she put that in that report. He has no authority to tell her she cannot do that. The Constitution says that's what she must do. And further, the Constitution says that within submitting her report, in the next sitting of Parliament, the report must be submitted and submitted to the Parliament. Well, what he did, he asked for, made a resolution to extend the time. That's usually done before the 31st of January because you don't think you meet the deadline. But of course, in my view, having seen that, he wanted to buy time to do something. And the something he did was set up what they call is this investigative committee headed by a retired judge, Justice Harris. And you look at it to the references. Well, when I spoke about it on another show, your colleague, and I read out the terms of reference, it was very troubling because it almost came to a conclusion that it was as if the Auditor General was irresponsible. The Auditor General had done the understatement. The Auditor General had given the public the wrong information because it says what circumstances led to the understatement of revenue. So you've come to a conclusion. Understatement of revenue of public accounts for financial year 2023 and what should be done to avoid same. The efficacy of the electronic clearing system. Now, with regard to the argument was that the decimal point was put in the wrong place with the expenditure. So the expenditure was shown to be 25 billion when it was only 25 million. So when they made the adjustment, it increased the revenue position from 61 to 63 billion. I'm just simplifying it. And that electronic clearing system, which is something the central bank had just initiated in February, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
She had asked, and they didn't report it completely. She asked if she could meet with the central bank governor and also review the system. That is her job. He said she couldn't review it. Well, I saw the letter, and they said she couldn't review it. They said she could come, but she couldn't see the system. But why can't
was any reason given as to why she was not allowed?
No, there's a very short letter, if I can recall. Something be corrected. I saw the letter, it was very short. No explanation. Why wouldn't you let her see it? And let her see it because that, if you're saying that's the cause of the problem, and her responsibility under the Constitution and the Exchequer Audit Act is to audit to make sure that you can verify what you're saying to be so. Let me see the system. Why don't you want me to see it? So, in any event, the efforts made by the officials at the Ministry of Finance and its various division to correct the understatement. So everything seemed to be like, oh, we at the Ministry of Finance did everything, and this lady is giving trouble. That is the way that terms of reference seem to read. And that's how the Privy Council took it, because as you know, repeating, Lady Simler said several times that the lawyer representing the Attorney General, who made the appeal decision of the Court of Appeal, who found in her favor that she was entitled to relief for judicial review of the decision of the High Court. So he was honest, he couldn't take that decision. So he went went now to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council gave him a little harder time through his counsel by saying you couldn't come. Where's the knockout blow? Couldn't answer that. Why isn't the Minister of Finance part of this terms of reference?
Suggesting bias, yeah.
And she asks it over and over again. If you don't understand what she means, well, you have to know that she's saying we haven't got any written report because she said it was so important. They listened to it for 2 hours, rose for 10 minutes, according to the report in the papers, came back and said, we don't need to hear your lawyer. We already know the decision, review, granted. And what is also noteworthy, as far as I recall, there are 2 cases that she had, which is going to come up a little later, a few days later, against the Attorney General, because the Attorney General said to her, when she came to him under the legislation, to her, for senior counsel, junior counsel, instructing an attorney on an indemnity basis. So I don't know if the Attorney General going ahead with the case, because if I was that, I think you already made up their mind that they're supposed to pay for her.
But can I ask you something? In respect to the Hires Committee that was set up to investigate this entire imbroglio, why is it that the Minister of Finance saw it fit to go down this particular avenue?
Okay, so this is and now everything, there is in law something called fair comment. So I'm covering myself with that, a fair comment. And that is because under the Constitution was created that post of Auditor General one of the things, of course, it would have been concerned about is political or other interference, because it's a serious job. I mean, in other words, they could send anything to her and she's just supposed to accept it. But when you don't need her, then she's redundant. She's there. She's the gatekeeper for us. You know, this is not their money. It's our money she's gatekeeping. And why he would have done that, to answer your question, more thing, under the Constitution 116.6, it says the exercise of his function, his includes who, under the Constitution shall not be subject to direction or control of any person or authority. So that created a problem. Unlike with the central bank governor, who has no independence of office, and of which he lost his case, by the way, and in which the central bank governor was awarded significant damages for a wrongful dismissal by that same Minister of Finance. There was no protection. This is her constitutional protection. So I don't think he was happy with her, and at all, to put it mildly. And these are some of the reasons why she said that the terms of reference and the whole way in which the this Harris-headed investigation committee was questionable in terms of going after, because you're looking at, also the things you look at is fairness, justice, fairness, whether it's motivated by malice, or, you know, you look at these kinds of things when people, when you go for leave for judicial review. So when you look at it, these were the arguments that they were put forward. Number one, the involvement of the Minister of Finance himself. He initiated the investigation. He selected the members of the team. He determined the terms of reference as they related to the Auditor General. He assumed responsibility vis-a-vis his ministry for remuneration of the investigating committee. And finally, he required the team to report to the minister himself. So when you see that, you want to ask yourself, well, what is he about? I mean, why do go to all that trouble? You know, someone said, I think the opposition leader said, doesn't it seem like a waste of time? Well, no, maybe not, because this is what happened. Now, since you can't touch her that way under 116.2, you can't touch her. She's insulated, just like the DPP is insulated. Some officers are insulated. However, that doesn't mean she can't be removed. And how do you remove her?
Really? If she's insulated, it suggests that she can't be removed. But you see,
no, but any officer can be removed under certain circumstances. So therefore, if you couldn't remove her that way, then the first step one might think is, well, let me set up an investigative committee. And if this investigative committee brings a report to us that shows some wrongdoing on her part, shows some dereliction of duty on her part, some sort of thing that would make her unfit to be hold the office of Auditor General. Let's just say, for argument's sake, given the terms of reference, which even the Privy Council questioned, why wasn't he part of the terms of reference? This is what Section 129 of the Constitution, and it applies, 129.11 says it applies to the Auditor General. It clearly says that. And the person to do the removal is the president. That's why you need an independent president, because you know who appoints the president. Prime Minister. So under the 129, it says it is that the president, either on her own initiative, or either on the either on her own initiative, or on the prime minister, or at the request of the prime minister, can establish a tribunal for the purpose of determining removal of office. And Section 129.9 talks about the appointment of the tribunal, and is appointed by the president again. And she appoints the chairman and no less than 2 other persons on the advice of the Judicial Legal Service Commission. Well, it is true the Judicial Legal Service Commission is not appointed directly by her, but the chair, who is the Chief Justice, is appointed by the Prime Minister. And 129,
what reasons?
And this goes on. It says 129.12. It says clearly this applies to the Auditor General and such other officers may be prescribed. And it says that the tribunal shall inquire into matters and report on facts to the president and advise whether the officer should be removed on the grounds specified in 129.7. So what are the grounds? The grounds are inability to discharge the functions of his office as a result from infirmity of mind or body. This is the key part, or any other cause, or for misbehavior. Yeah, what is that? Or any other cause.
So hold on, Karen. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not trying to be facetious here. But the president could simply say, I don't like you, you're gone. And that can happen because that's what any other cause suggests.
But what it says is that the president has the authority on her own initiative or the advice of the prime minister to set up a tribunal. It's other officers can be done, but we're talking about the Auditor General. And it says in 120.11 that this section applies to the Auditor General. So it's a set up a tribunal. So it's a tribunal that has to be set up to make the determination. But in setting up the tribunal, the president selects the chairman, and the president selects no less than 2 other persons who sit on that tribunal on the advice of the Judicial Legal Service Commission, which is headed by our Chief Justice, who is appointed by our Prime Minister, by the way. And they then go now and determine whether I am assuming if the Harris investigation team had submitted a report to the cabinet, and the cabinet said, well, there's enough grounds here to set up a tribunal. You need to set up a tribunal. And then we will set it up under Section 129. And when we set it up under Section 129, we could remove her. Because we could remove her if the tribunal is of a view, as I read out to you, infirmity of mind or body, misbehavior, or any other cause. So that is a circuitous rounds, but the only way, if that is in fact the reason behind setting up the tribunal, because, you know, you have to sit down and think, if it is that they wanted to get rid of her, because she also filed a special report, and that must have hurt them hard, because the special report, I have to mention, they didn't do it out of the kindness of their heart, and anybody can go to the website and they'll find it, okay? They had to set up, she was given opportunity to explain why, in effect, she gave a disclaimer to her report. That's what it amounted to. And Section 25(4) of the Exchequer and Audit Act, so it's not her deciding these things. This is the legislation. It says the Auditor General, that's 25(4) of the Exchequer and Audit Act. It says the Auditor General, if at any time it appears to him desirable to transmit a special report to the Minister for presentation in like manner to Parliament, such special report may be made incidental to his powers and duties under the Act. So she exercised her powers under Section 25(4). This is after the Harris Tribunal had been set up. This is after they had set this up and set out the terms of reference. She then exercised her powers to let them understand what she meant, I am assuming, when she said what she said in disclaimer. So you don't want me, you want me to be more clear? And if you read it, it's there for everybody to read. I read it, I read it. She gave a number of reasons. And it's very worrying, actually, when you read it. She gave a different heading, monthly monitoring and reviewing. She said they was not signed off by the internal audit as evidence of certification by the accounting officer on documents examined as per in contravention of the Control of Accounts directions. Authorization, no evidence that adjustments dated May the 14th was signed by the Control of Accounts to authorize changes to the general ledger account, which is the debit and credit account. All adjustments, the vouchers to refund totaling 2.599 billion, which is the 2.6 billion we're talking about, were reviewed. However, none was signed by the controller or accounts as required. She talked about the segregation of duties, no evidence of debit advice slips prepared by the controller sent to the chairman of the Board of Inland Revenue were examined for unusual or material transactions. I think 2.6 billion would qualify. Signatures of preparation, checking, reviewing, and approving of debit advice slips were not seen by them or documents examined. Audit could not determine who prepared, who checked, and who reviewed the debit accounts. And she talked about proper recording, inability to produce accurate and complete accounts for the financial position for 2023. Accounting books and records in the Ministry of Finance were not finalized. So at the end of the day, she gave other reasons. She concluded, ineffective internal audit, absence of management oversight may have contributed to non-compliance with the legislative requirements of the Exchequer and Audit Act. That is her special report.
Karen, there are two things from this. One,
I'm shocked by what I told you.
Yes, because it has me, you've been following this case, you've broken it down brilliantly, and I thank you for that. Not to digress from the topic at hand, but from what you explained, even with respect to the president and the powers that the president has, and why you made the argument this is why we need an independent president, it suggests that the prime minister now has absolute power. The prime minister can do as he pleases because of the chief justice, because of the president existing there. So that's just one point raised. But the second thing is, and this is where I want your opinion now, do you think that this entire process, even with the Minister of Finance, creating this committee on his own, coming up with the terms of reference on his own, appointing members of the committee of his own, and then, of course, the Privy Council deliberating for 10 minutes, if it was so much, was this a waste of time and money? Was this a waste of resources?
Well, in one sense, one can say that. But by the way, it's the Minister of Finance through the cabinet, and that's how it's worded, because the cabinet had to give the approval, but all the initiative of everything came from him. But it is through the cabinet it is. So it's the Minister of Finance and the cabinet, but it's really the minister. So what is the question you ask? What's the point of giving the Auditor General and other public officers who are so important to our democracy, and you deliberately give them that insularity from political interference and for good reason? You go to all that trouble, yet you see acted out, and I can't say for sure, because but you have to ask yourself, what's the purpose of the Harris investigative report? And even the Privy Council couldn't understand. Why is he not being investigated too? Because he don't want himself investigated. He wants to investigate it because he wants to get a report. And when he gets a report, I have to assume, it's only reasonable. If it's wrong, it's wrong. But oh my goodness, what else are you to think? If you can't touch her under 116.6, and that may frustrate you, because you could get rid of the central bank governor, you lost, but you could get rid of him because he did not have independence as the DPP has, as the Auditor General has. So how am I going to get rid of this lady? That is what has to come to your mind, because why set up this thing, and why it is that the Privy Council is concerned that you are not part of it. Shouldn't you be investigated? Because I think you should be investigated. Why are you sending, you are the Treasury, by the way, in the Exchequer and Audit Act, Treasury is defined as the Ministry of Finance, You sent it, why didn't you, when you sent it the first time and realized that something was wrong, because that's what your PS said, and said we miscalculated, it's really supposed to be 64 billion, not 61 billion. Wouldn't you, as a Minister of Finance, go and check with the Controller of Accounts, the Board of Inquiry, find out where the mistake was? And then when you find out where the mistake is, my God, you all have fallen down on the job. You all have fallen down on the job. This is absolute delinquency, this absolute incompetence. We are to blame for what has gone wrong. If the Auditor General says that she needs vouchers and she needs proof, well, if she is now telling us now, well, that's why she couldn't do it, because you couldn't give her the proof. And when she asked to see the electronic system, which, the central bank office has been reduced from 5 to 3 years, right? When you can't get to see that, he tells you, yeah, you could come and see me, but you can't review the system, which you saying it caused the problem with the decimal point. When you're doing all of that, should I ask the court, should ask the investigating Minister of Finance? Should not on the 31st of January, but by the time you realize there was a mistake according to you, and that, oh, by the way, we made a mistake, just check, correct it. No, that is not her job. then she's redundant. You don't need her. You do your own thing. That's her job. And if you don't want her to do that, then why are we not investigating you and your ministry to find out what y'all were doing inside there when you realized you had made a mistake, and look at the number of errors she pointed out in her special report that makes you wonder what was going on inside of there, that things were not being done. Shouldn't you investigate yourself? Because you investigate anybody's been, and I think that's what that's what the Privy Council really trying to say, you know. Because I understand, because I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. The 31st of January could generally be an error that he was not aware of. Okay, I give him that pass. But by the time you come and have your PS right and say, oh, by the way, we made a mistake. And by the way, they could not, 870 billion. It started with 3 point something billion, but it went down to 2.6 nearly, because they couldn't get 870 million, and they gave that up, right? By that time, you knew there was a problem, and you knew the problem emanated from your ministry, Inland Revenue, Control of Accounts. You knew that's where the problem emanated. Instead of taking responsibility for your incompetence of your ministry, because you are the head of it as the head of Treasury, instead of taking that, you want to put it on her, hoping that she would shut her mouth, not say anything in the disclaimer. When he saw that, he must have been beside himself, because that resolution to extend the time is done before you send in the report, not after you send in the report. And then you set up a Harris thing. For what purpose? For them to come back and say they found a cause to show why she should, the president should be recommended to the president, a tribunal to be set up under Section 129. I mean, that's how it's looking. That's how it's looking.
We're reaching to that end.
I hope I'm helpful.
I know. I will tell. No, you have been very helpful. But the thing is, it concerns me even more now. At the time this has taken, the resources that it has taken, it's gone all the way to the Privy Council. For then, lawyers have been paid, assets and resources have been diverted, and of course, this is what happened.
And the purpose, why did you set up that Harris? You couldn't get rid of 116.6. Yeah. Why you set it up? The law lords asked you, why are you not a subject of this investigation? You should be, your ministry should be part of this. So all of that, you know.
But Karen, it's the case continues. The case goes on. We will see what happens next. But at this point, Karen, I want to thank you very much for your time and for breaking it down for all the elements, starting on Tuesday and, of course, continuing and concluding this morning. Thank you very much, Karen.
And just to tell you, I would invite your listeners to go to the Auditor General's website, because when they go there, they will find the special report, they will find the Exchequer and Audit Act, they will find all the documents that are independent legislative documents that would assist them in understanding. So they will have a better understanding on their own of the issues that we discussed today.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All the very best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a program we've had this morning. And we thank Karen once more for breaking down all the elements of this particular case. It goes on, it continues, we will see what happens next. But at this particular point, it baffles me. It baffles me at times, just what happens in Trinidad and the costs associated with this: time, resources, money spent. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime. Thanks very much to my guests for joining me this morning, and to you, the viewer, of course, for being a part of AM Prime and the conversation. To my team in studio, Randy Gomez-Burke and Milewood, thank you very much for your continued hard work and efforts. And of course, to Naomi McNish for producing AM Prime. I'm Keaton Shaw, reminding you today is a good day to have a good day. I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe